Hello everyone and welcome to another video on Ascent to the Skies. As you have learned from my previous videos by now that I'm learning how to fly an airplane, and I am more or less in the starting stages of my private pilot license. I flew some traffic patterns day before yesterday, and in my own opinion, those they did not go very well. If you did not see that video, I'm gonna link it with this video, and you should be able to see that. But today's video about is doing some sort of a debrief, so that I could learn from my previous mistakes, and I can also learn from those mistakes and try to avoid them next time. I've recently started flying with ForeFlight. Initially, I thought it's a little too expensive, but I did manage to. But after experimenting with a couple of apps on the market, I did decide to make this investment. And I would say that it is definitely a worthwhile investment because I could definitely see how much this app, um, what how much this app actually, what sort of value does it bring for the pilot, and some of that I'm about to show you during the course of this video. But first, I fly at Echo Delta Lima Echo, which is the Essen-Mulheim airport in Germany. The first thing, I will take you through the visual operation chart of Essen-Mulheim. The field elevation is 424 feet, which means that we have a traffic pattern at 1400 feet. There is aerodrome traffic zone from ground to 1500 feet. So that we need to be really careful in terms of flying the pattern and in terms of maintaining our altitude. One of the things that you would notice from in this traffic pattern is the final leg. The final leg is the traffic pattern is not entirely rectangular. Because of noise abatement issues, we have to avoid the area beyond the autobahn, and which means that our final leg is a little. It's not just like straight in. You have to change your heading a little. So this is the thing. What we can see from the visual operation chart. Now I'm gonna go to my logbook and I'm gonna have a look at the last lesson I flew. I think this is the level of data that is collected, especially in terms of a debrief. It is extremely valuable because just through the slider, I could see that at what time I was in the air, what was my speed at each at what point and each leg of the traffic pattern, and I could also see my altitude as well. Of course, this data is collected from the iPad, so of course this is probably not 100% accurate, but I could still confirm that it is pretty good. The data collected is actually really good. So one of the features I've been just exploring on this app is this 3D view, and as you could see that it overlays the flown leg, which is, I believe that it is extremely valuable. One of the things, of course, I don't like is that I'm not able to select a certain leg, and it shows me these layers as well, but still I feel that it is very valuable. Of course, you could change the settings from a pilot's perspective from inside the cockpit, and you could see it from an outside perspective as well. So the first thing what I can already see is that there is me on the departure leg. And one of the things that I remember from the day is that it was not particularly warm, but it was uh, there were low pressures during the day. The QNH was 1005, and I could definitely feel that the airplane was struggling to climb, or it was taking a very long while at 70 knots. Normally, at this point, when I am at right downwind, the airplane already is on around 1400 feet. But on this particular day, it was taking a while. But having said that, I'm also learning, and I don't fly up. I'm trying to perfect my skills as well. So the in the and at the moment, the focus of my training is practice doing some landing practices. And as you could see is that as I can see from my right downwind leg, is that I was able to maintain more or less the traffic pattern altitude of 1400 feet. But as soon as at this point I'm abeam, and as soon as I hit abeam, I turn on my car beat and the first notch of flaps as soon as the my air speed is in the white arc. So you could see that the air speed is dropping, but one of the mistakes I've done on this point is that I should have maintained my altitude, and I've already lost more or less 150 feet as I'm turning towards the right base. And this is the first mistake I did, and I'm already too low. So I'm supposed to be at this turn, I'm supposed to be around 1400 feet, and this is where I should start my descent. And then as I turn, then I have the second notch of flaps. But the first, as you could see, is that I'm already descending way too quickly, and as I turn in the final, at this point, as I've learned during flying, is that it's supposed to be around 1100 feet as you're turning towards final. So from right downwind towards base, you should descend at around 300 feet per minute. But I've probably lost somewhere around 500 feet or even 600 feet. So I'm already way down, and I have lost my altitude at this point, and I'm using a lot of power at this point. You can't see the RPM, but I remember that I'm using a lot of power to maintain my speed and somehow maintaining enough altitude, and I managed to of course land the plane. But as you could see is that at this point that I started I'm more or less not around a glide path. I'm more or less flying straight in. So this is the first mistake I did in the pattern. The second one, at this point, again, I believe that was the low pressure during the day, because the airplane struggled to climb. But as you could see from the data as well, is that I'm more or less climbing at 70 knots, or more or less around that speed, but airplane is still struggling to climb. But at this point, I am already doing the traffic pattern altitude quite nicely. I'm around 80 knots. And again, as I'm a beam, at this point, I deploy the first notch of flaps. My airspeed um, gets lower, but I learned from my last experiences that I should maintain my altitude because last time it did not go very well. But I should have learned, but because this time again, I'm losing my. Losing not only my speed, but I'm losing my altitude at this point as well. I believe I know my mistake. I think I was not trimming the aircraft properly for the slow flight, and which is why I'm losing my altitude. But this time, at this point, around the turn from right base to towards the final, it should be around 1100 feet, but still I'm more or less around that range, and but again I'm too slow at this point because in final I've this 5 knots of drop down, the drop in 5 knots is me deploying the flaps, third level of flaps, which affects my speed. But of course I don't have, again I'm losing my altitude a bit too rapidly, and I managed to land the plane. And this is my third try again. Right downwind 1200 again, and this time I'm also maintaining 1400 feet, and in this try I am again a little too low, and but I do manage to land it at the correct speed at this point. So in this video I just wanted to show you is that how you can use ForeFlight and especially make use of this functionality, and discuss it with your CFI, that and just by using data, that what was your performance during the day, what was your shortcomings, and it's, I would say, is that it is a very nice feature to have. I hope next time I can learn from my mistakes and I can implement these learnings in my next actual flying lesson. Flying on VR or MSFS is relatively simple, but in actual conditions, especially on a windy day, on this day we had 10 knots coming from 330, and I'm flying from runway 240, and I had to use a lot of rudder on that day to keep me on that center line. As you could see, is that as soon as I took off, the wind kept on pushing me from my center line, and this is me using my rudder paddles to maintain my center line, and I'm again using a lot of right rudder again in order to turn towards my right base, right crosswind leg. So this is me with another video. I hope whether you are also a student or whether you are a teacher who wants to use this functionality to do some good debriefs. I hope you could take something out of this video.